Good evening. This is Perrysburg City Council for July 28, 2020. I'm Mayor Tom Mackin. Call to order, please, and now roll call.
All right, Ms. Bourne.
Here.
Mr. Coolman.
Here.
Ms. Materney.
Here.
Mr. Matuzak.
Here.
Mr. McCarthy.
Here.
Mr. Smith.
Here.
Mr. Van Hoosen is absent.
Please stand if you're able and join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Minutes of council meetings of July 7th and the committee of the whole of July 21st.
All right, thank you, Your Honor. I have both copies here. We're going to vote on them separately. So I would like to move to approve the meeting minutes of the City Council meeting held on July 7th, 2020 is written and dispense with the reading.
Second. Roll call.
Okay, Ms. Bourne.
Yes.
Mr. Coolman.
Yes.
Ms. Materney.
Yes.
Mr. Matuzak.
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes. All right, and then I would also like to move to approve the minutes of the City Council meeting of the whole that was held on July 21st, 2020 is written and dispense with the reading.
Roll call.
Okay, Ms. Bourne.
Yes.
Mr. Coolman.
Yes.
Ms. Materney.
Yes.
Mr. Matuzak.
Abstain.
Mr. McCarthy.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. You have no special reports scheduled. Letters, communication, citizen concerns. If you know some of you are here for a particular item, why don't we just have you guys, if you're going to speak, talk at the service report time. Because I assume that's why you're here. Safety. Yeah. Oh, safety. Sorry, my bad. Yes.
Mayor,
Yes.
if I may, I have a couple of citizen concerns. One is from Helen Barber of Chesterton in Southwood Park. Said that there is a big skunk nearby. There's debris near there, and that's where it's right near her property. And the skunk is kind of hanging out there. I guess it's a big skunk causing trouble in the neighborhood. Also, multiple complaints from citizens who see me. I'm sorry.
Would you have them email the city? I mean, there's not a lot we can do about skunks, but we might be able to
Sure.
listen right away.
Sure, no problem. Also, Mayor and Council and everyone here, multiple complaints from citizens who have seen me out and about the unmoved car across from the Kingston on Boundary. Apparently there's tall grass and there's just a car kind of hanging out there. I've looked at it, it looks kind of shabby and not so good when you move into the city, or look into the city. In the sloppy mode.
Yeah, man. Yeah, they will get the information to us. We can get.
I'd be happy to do that, sure.
Okay. Any other citizen concerns not related to or committee agenda? If not, we'll move to administrative reports. I have no report other than the appointment to various committees. From a review committee, I saw that. So I would like to reappoint Quinn Baumgartner to the Citizens to PrAC, Todd Francis to PrAC. Well, let's do them all one time. Caleb Christensen to PrAC, Jonah Bruning to litter prevention, and Xavier Raven to litter prevention. You can, those are who I'm recommending, and you can do it however you prefer. You can do it now if you want.
I'll make a motion to accept the appointments and reappointments as read by Mr. Mackin.
Second.
Can I have some discussion on that quickly?
Sure.
I just would like to make mention of Quinn Baumgartner has not come before our committee, which is Recreation. We've not seen her. I like her personally, but I think that she should come before us because of the new rules of council and the Recreation Committee. It states that they need to come before us first, and then the appointment review, and then council.
It's just a reappointment, so.
It would be preferable if she would do that, and we would follow the rules of council.
Any other discussion? Otherwise, roll call.
Okay, Ms. Bourne.
I vote for everyone except for Ms. Baumgartner. She's not come before our committee.
Mr. Coolman,
Yes.
Ms. Materney,
Yes.
Mr. Matuzak.
I'm gonna vote yes, but I tend to agree with Ms. Warren that maybe we should have done it that way, but I'll vote yes for purposes of keeping it moving.
Thank you. Mr. McCarthy.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Administrator report?
Thank you, Your Honor. I just wanted to let all of council know that late the week before, 2 Fridays ago, we received word from our current city engineer that he was retiring prior to his date of December 31st of 2020. And luckily for us, we had already started the search process for a new city engineer, and we continue to accept applications until August 15th. So that'll be coming before council at some point to affirm that appointment, and I believe our city council president will be part of the interview process.
Ms. Cabot, how long is I'm assuming this is Mr. Dariano?
Correct.
How long is Mr. Dariano still here?
Mr. Dariano was here, I believe, through August 2nd.
Okay, will he be able to be recognized for his service to the city? I think it's been many years.
Yes, we are working on something for that.
At enough for the
Yeah,
council.
yes. And if, we will let council know as well, be part of that process for sure. Finance director?
Well, I don't have any report of my own. I did get a request this afternoon from Mr. Matuzak to report to you folks in terms of the money from the CARES Act. So I did call down to Wood County and talk to the auditor's office, and they make all their payments to Perrysburg by way of a check. So a check was put in the mail to us on Friday of last week. I expect to receive that sometime by the end of this week.
Like $5 million or something like that?
What's that?
$5 million, is that what it was?
Well, I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 700,000? 600,000. Okay.
You can't see his smirk and smile.
No, that's right. Well, actually, you kind of can, but
Okay. Just, the reason I asked was to give you an update, but not because I didn't know that we didn't have it or it was coming or anything like that. But my real concern is, I think when we first learned of this and we were talking about it, we were talking about putting together a package for the business that were to apply for that.
Actually, that came up today. The administrator and I talked about it, and we also talked to the Wood County today that there can't be duplicative resources for availability of funds. Wood County has submitted that they're going to have funds available to the entire county for small businesses. So we're learning about that, but if that triggers in, that would be a better vote, because that's directly also from the sourcing agency, Wood County. So we would then have to make sure all the people we were thinking about from our end go to Wood County. So that's what we just started talking about today, about how best to do that, because we don't want to, you can't have duplication of funding. So depending on what Wood County's program is, and I think you're meeting with Glenn tomorrow. So once we get that sorted out, that's going to be option one, and then we're thinking about how we could then fit anybody who doesn't fit into that option. Does that make sense?
But we're still gonna make it a point to try to educate our own businesses.
Right.
Correct, I do believe the Chamber of Commerce, Perrysburg Chamber of Commerce, sent all their members out at least the information regarding Wood County Commissioners Program, that the Wood County Economic Development Commission was, I guess, in charge of that application process. Currently, it looks as if that program is available to employers who have 30 or less employees, have $1 million or less, I believe, in gross revenue, and they can apply for grants upwards, I think, of $5,000 a piece. So we're reviewing that program. We did talk to our own economic development consultant today from Reveille, Glenn Grisdale, and we're looking at a program he put together in another jurisdiction to see how it matches and or what the differences are with the Wood County program, so we can see if there are any gaps to be filled.
So the criteria is different for ours and what it is for Wood County. They're mutually
Right.
exclusive and we're okay.
We're also looking at possibly we could be a source for like the cemetery or some other. So we're looking into those options.
Great. Thank you.
See you then.
Okay. President of Council now. Director of Law.
I have two things for you this evening. In your packet, you'll find a revised Resolution 37-2020. So that's based on the email that goes out on Fridays with your council packet, meaning that that was going to be a piece of legislation considered by the Service Committee last evening. It did receive Service Committee recommendations, so I've updated the legislation for your review this evening. I've also attached a pricing proposal that the Service Committee considered. So that's in your packet for review. Also included in your folder for review this evening is a copy of my letter of resignation for the position of law director. I had the opportunity not only to speak with the mayor and president of council, but the members of the personnel committee this evening. I just wanted to let the city council know how gracious I am for having the opportunity to serve you that I have. Not walking out the door right away. I'm hoping to stay at least 2 more months and see, help advise the administration on the process of my successor. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Even though Mayor Mackin has refused to accept it.
I'm so little now.
Scared up.
I say what happens if we don't accept it.
Were we doing this? Are you from saying it or what?
I grovel for these. Thank you very much. We appreciate. We wish you well.
Get a rough from the
President of Council report.
I have no report, Your Honor.
Thank you. Committee reports, Finance and Economic Development.
Thank you, Mayor Mackin. We did not have our last meeting for the agenda items. Our next, I have no legislation for that. Our next meeting will be at its regular time unless we change it.
Okay, thank you very much. Service Committee.
We met July 27th, yesterday at 5:30, myself, Clark Coleman, and Jonathan Smith. Our first item of business was to approve appointments to the Litter Prevention and Recycling Board for Jonah and Xavier. Second item, which will be coming up as a resolution, is agreement with Campbell Mechanical Services for the acquisition of an air purification system for municipal HVAC systems. Is a,
Do I just read it? Yeah.
do you want to discuss it now or?
Okay, it's probably good to read it, just let
Yeah, just to read it, yeah.
Mrs. The back, sorry, I'm gonna butcher your name. Called attention to the materials provided to the committee regarding global plasma solutions. Todd Cossacks and Chris Campbell Mechanical Services were present to explain how the systems work. Mr. Todd said it puts negative and positive ions into the air to remove pollutants and allergens. Ms. McCurney asked if it works with the heating and air conditioning system. Mr. Cossacks said that it mounts on the HVAC equipment, and as long as the blower is moving, it's working. Mr. Coleman asked if this would help with COVID-19. Mr. Kosis, thank you, said that it does. The effective rate is 99.4% in 30 minutes. Mr. Coleman asked if the purchase would qualify under the CARES Act. Ms. Alcart said that the $166,000 cost would qualify for the CARES Act funds. She stated the language will be included in the legislation, that the purchase is dependent upon the city receiving the CARES Act funds. There's a brief discussion about energy savings, but Mrs. Cabot said that upgrading the controls is not a part of this. The committee asked about other products that were looked at or if other quotes were received. Mrs. Cabot, I'm sorry, it's tonight, said that they have a patent on this technology and she's not sure of any other product available in this area. Mr. Kosick, thank you, I'm sorry about this tonight. Explain the disadvantages of UV and ozone systems. Ms. Alcart said that we don't have to go out to bid because no other company offers this product. Mr. Smith asked what buildings will be included, and Mrs. Quebec kept off. It said every building that has one. The committee agreed 3-0 to recommend approval of this purchase. Of the business, Mr. Smith said the Wood County Transportation Improvement District has not met so far. He has no update. And I just mentioned about kudos to the service committee, it's a public service. And that was the end of it. Respectfully submitted, and attorney, chairwoman. Our next meeting is August 26th, at 5:30 p.m.
Do you want to introduce the resolution?
Yeah, I'd like to introduce resolution 37-2020. Resolution accepting the proposal and entering an agreement with Campbell Mechanical Services for the acquisition of an air purification system for municipal HVAC systems. Recommendation to suspend the rules, waive the 3 reading rules, and pass as an emergency measure.
Second.
Roll call?
Okay, Ms. Bourne,
Yes.
Mr. Coolman,
Yes.
Ms. Materney,
Yes.
Mr. Matuzak,
Yes to the motion to introduce it.
thank you, Mr. McCarthy,
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes, introduce.
Mr. Mayor, I have
Okay.
a couple of questions.
Yeah, motion to pass.
Actually,
I have a couple of questions.
She really did both.
Yeah, she did both, yeah. She was
I
supposed to
mean,
introduce it.
right, she is, okay, so I was gonna say, even though Ms. Materney did my job for me, I was gonna go ahead and read and get back on track of where we're at. So, no, it's fine. Okay, so Resolution 37, 2020, a resolution accepting the proposal and entering into an agreement with Campbell Mechanical Services for the acquisition of an air purification system for municipal HVAC systems and declaring an emergency. Now I need a motion to pass.
I motion that I move that resolution 37-2020 be passed as an emergency measure.
Second.
Discussion one, question.
I just have a couple questions, Mr. Mayor.
Why is it an emergency measure? We may want to just answer that.
We have limited time.
Well, that's certainly a fair question.
Good evening again, this is Bridget, the city administrator, and on behalf of Laura Elfire, help us out. Given the timeline and time constraints that we are under in order to spend these funds, we are asking for it to be an emergency. If it does pass as an emergency and the contract is signed, it'll take approximately 3 weeks at this point in time to get the equipment in, and then installation would be scheduled. We have to have our funds expended by December 31st of this year, and they have to be appropriated by, I believe, October 15th of this year. So we just want to make sure that we can fit within that timeline and also have the equipment installed as soon as possible. We are concerned that a delay to the next council meeting would then push the date out in which to acquire the equipment, which would then push out the date to install the equipment, and we could be in a little bit of a crunch with our timeline. And obviously, we want to get our buildings open as soon as we can to the public, and this would assist us in doing so.
And that reason assumes that we don't pay for it until it's been installed, but do we necessarily have to wait until it's been installed to pay for it?
Excuse me, Councilman, what you said?
So I think your reasoning assumes that we don't pay for it until it's been installed. Is there any
Correct.
reason we have to wait until it's been installed to pay for it?
I believe that is our practice, to wait for the installation and the testing of the equipment to assure ourselves that it is working properly
Okay.
before paying the bill.
Ms. Cabot, I do have a question for you.
Oh, Jim, do you have any questions? Just go down here since you.
No, I think that was a fair explanation as to why we want to wait. It's in the best interest of the city to make sure we're getting what we're paying for.
I assume that's what you were going to ask, so. All right, Ms. Bourne.
Thank you so much, Mayor. Quick question, Ms. Cabot. I am wondering, having read the information, obviously I agree that we need to have pure air. I agree with that. But my question is, I saw where it was $144,000 more than what we have in the budget. Is there going to be, would that be more of a cost to the city? Is there any cost to the city at all, or is it strictly from the CARES Act?
All the funding for this particular project would come from the CARES Act.
Thank you.
Also contingent upon receipt of that funding, correct?
Which
We're going to do, right.
Which we can receive it. Check it.
Correct.
That's a whole other community report.
Any other discussion?
The only thing I would just add as well, and I mentioned this last night, is I know that just the list of buildings on here, I think that, and I know that they're probably going to be hard to get them all done, but the senior center and some of those general populated areas should definitely be some of the first ones to get this.
Yes, this includes approximately 13 buildings, 13 locations. Some have multiple buildings on them, such as our wastewater treatment plant and our utilities department. But this does include both the Schaller building and the senior center of the city.
Roll call?
Okay, roll call. Mr. McCarthy,
Yes.
Ms. Bourne,
Yes.
Mr. Matuzak,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Materney,
Yes.
Mr. Coolman.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Safety, that's you then.
That is me today, Mr. Mayor. I am filling in for Barry, who is not able to be here this evening because he is out of town. He asked me to give them to the safety report for July 21st, 2020. The meeting was held at the Hilton Garden Inn because it was held prior to the committee of the whole meeting. The meeting was called to order at 5:35 p.m. by Chairman Barry Van Hoosen. Committee members present were Deborah Bourne and Barry Van Hoosen. Jim Matuzak was absent. Also present was Laura Alkire, Law Director. Citizen Concerns, Maple Street, Tim Gologowski, 8 Maple Street, thanked City Council for their support, and he said he hopes the 15-mile-an-hour speed limit is approved at the next City Council meeting. Mr. Gologowski said he would also like flashing lights to be installed year-round. He said he believes that the flashing sign says "thank you" if cars are under the speed limit or slow down if they are over it. Mr. Van Hoosen said that it was a unanimous decision at the City Council meeting to lower the speed limit. Ms. Alkire said that there is an ordinance on the city books about City Council having the authority to change speed limits, but after the last City Council meeting, Chief Jones did quite a bit of research, and the ODOT guidelines and Ohio Revised Code section 4511.21I1 state municipalities can increase the speed limit, but to lower it below the prima facie requires a study that has to be submitted to ODOT. The state law supersedes our ordinances. Ms. Alkire said that we have to go through the due diligence to find out the appropriate speed limit. She called attention to a proposal from DGL that was distributed to the committee. The quote from DGL is $21,000, which is below the administration's threshold for City Council approval, but it is being presented to the committee as a courtesy. Ms. Alkire said the proposal includes a review of not only the speed limit, but looking at the width of the street and additional amenities to make it safer. Ms. Bourne said that she disagrees with doing the study and the issue needs to be dealt with now. She said tax revenues are down, this is ridiculous, and it is it is a lawsuit waiting to happen. Ms. Alkire said that as a legal officer for the city, it is her opinion that we lower the speed limit without getting the study done and submitting it to ODOT. We will be breaking the law. Mike Kuzno, 26901 Eckel Road, said that during the COVID-19 pandemic, the CDC and FDA have taken shortcuts, and he wonders why we can't do that too. He asked why the law director just can't write to ODOT and ask them to change the speed limit without a study. Mr. Van Hoosen said that he realized this is an urgent issue and that we need some quick wins. He said that there are still things that we can do, like rumble strips and speed monitors. However, there are other safety issues to be looked at, such as grade, because they are heard from several of the residents and drivers not being able to see. Mr. Gologowski said that he is disappointed but not surprised. He said that City Council and the administration seem to be on different paths. He said the problem is not going away and the residents will not stand for it. He said that the 25 mile an hour is not a solution and the city is putting its residents at risk over paperwork. Ms. Alkire said that the rumble strips have been ordered and the speed monitors have arrived. She said that the items in the speed study are a la carte, so the first part of the traffic study can be done within a couple of weeks of being approved. She said that they are trying to employ intermediate tactics and Chief Jones is still having patrols in the area. Sally Goligowski, 8 Maple Street, said that she thinks the volume of traffic has doubled this year. She asked about the speed bumps because in the past she was told that they could not be used because of the snowplows. Mr. Van Hoosen said that he is still in support of lowering the speed limit, but based on the legal advice that has been given, he feels that we need to move forward with the traffic study. Ms. Bourne disagreed and said that ODOT is used on state routes and state roads. She added that DGL usually does roundabouts. Maya Fish, 5 Maple Street, said that the speed study needs to be done now. She said that her 3-year-old ran into the street the other day, and there's only so much she can do as a mother. She said that she does not want to put a fence around her entire property. She said that the speed monitoring signs do make a difference. The visual reminders help. Ms. Fish's daughters also expressed their concerns about the traffic on their street. Ms. Bourne said the proposal from DGL adds a sidewalk, multi-use path, and widens the street. Mr. Van Hoosen said the current plan to temporarily install the speed monitors and put down rumble strips on a seasonal basis. They will be removed because of the snowplows. Mr. Van Hoosen said that in terms of a study, it is comprehensive and the scope of work has to do with the grade because of the walkers and bikers, and it is a safety issue. The committee vote was 1-1 to recommend approval of the traffic study. Ms. Warren said that she does not believe it moves onto City Council without an affirmative vote. Mr. Van Hoosen said that he would like the full council to consider the issue. Skunks. Mr. Van Hoosen said there are a growing number of skunks in town. He said that it is his understanding that the safety director has a prerogative to have the animal control officer remove them, but skunks are not currently on the animals that he deals with. Mr. Van Hoosen asked what other options are available. Ms. Alkire said that the animal control officer has the authority to act as dog warden within the city. He has the authority to deal with domesticated animals. She said that she is aware of only a couple of complaints about skunks, and she recommended checking with the Ohio Division of Wildlife before we expand the role of the animal control officer. Mr. Van Hoosen asked if she meant contact the Division of Wildlife about the city as a whole, or as an individual, or on an individual basis. Ms. Alkire said that either she, Ms. Cabot, or Chief Jones can contact them and get back to the committee at the next meeting. Ms. Warren asked that Jeff Saylor at the Toledo Zoo be contacted. Street lighting. Mr. Van Hoosen said that as a resident on Hufford Road has requested a street light be installed near his home. Ms. Alkire said a request was received for an additional street light on Hufford about halfway down the road. There are currently lights at the intersections. She said that the resident asking for the light had some incidents occur back in 2016, according to Chief Jones. Ms. Alkire said that in 2001, City Council passed an ordinance placing the streetlights where they felt they were necessary, but they can add to it. Ms. Bourne asked if this portion of Hufford is in the city. Ms. Alkire said that it was her understanding that it is, and she believes Chief Jones would have referenced it if it wasn't. Not seeing an immediate need for a streetlight at the location, the committee agreed 2-0 to table the issue. Use of right-of-way. The committee decided to table this topic due to time constraints. Other business, there was no further business. The meeting adjourned at 6:15 p.m. Respectfully submitted, Barry Van Hoosen, Chairman, Safety Committee. And obviously I'm not Barry, I'm Deborah, but I would like to add that I don't want this to pass. It's an emergency, as an emergency measure. The Maple Street residents themselves have said that we do not need to spend $21,000 on this. This is different than what they want. And also, perhaps you could do what White House did. And I have some information on that. If you want me to talk about it, I can. Sure. I don't want to introduce it.
Okay. I'm Jim Matuzak. I'm also on the safety committee, although I wasn't present at that particular meeting. I'm very familiar with the issue. we did talk about it at council, I was at the council meeting where we talked about it. So, since Mr. Van Hoos, the chairman of the safety committee, is not present, and I'm a member of that committee, I would like to introduce Resolution 35, 2020, and move that the rules be suspended to allow first reading by number and title only, and to dispense with the second and third reading.
Second.
Roll call.
Okay, Ms. Bourne,
No.
Mr. Coolman,
Yes.
Mrs. Materney,
Yes.
Mr. Matuzak,
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy,
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Okay, resolution number 35, 2020, a resolution accepting the proposal and entering into an agreement with DGL Consulting Engineers for an engineering traffic study to be completed for Maple Street and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. I move that Resolution 35, 2020 be passed as an emergency measure.
Second.
Discussion.
I had a question. In the minutes, I think Laura was asked this question, or answered a question that was posed, that said the speed limit items are a la carte, so the first part of the traffic study can be done within a couple of weeks of being approved. And that's the speed study, as opposed to the engineering changes and that sort of thing. And my question then is, though, in the DGL proposal, it says, however, based on resident concerns for the spring walleye run, we would recommend that speed data also be gathered during this period to determine the speed profiles for the street.
Where do we to?
Where's this all go? Is this submitted to ODOT?
Eventually, yes. So you can see there are 3 parts to the DGL quote, and I may bring in Administrator Cabot on the details of each one of those. They do have the timelines referencing each one of the deliverables, and due to the level of traffic that also comes in at the walleye run, that's why it was advisable to do 2 separate studies so that we can see what it looks like at those different times of the year. Once the speed studies are received, and to answer your question, the way that the Ohio Revised Code reads is that this council would pass a resolution endorsing the speed studies and the recommended lower speed and submit that to the Department of Transportation. And then that's what it takes to get it in front of DOT. So you're gonna get the data back because you're gonna need to pass legislation to actually get DOT to reduce the speed at whatever the appropriate speed may be determined by the engineers, whether it's 15 or lower than that or 20, whatever it may be.
All right, so could we make the submission to ODOT based upon what we learned in the first 2 weeks, if it supports a decision to lower the speed and not wait for the spring walleye run?
I think you may be able to. I don't know if you have any additional information on the timeline, because I don't want to misquote it. But what they want to see the engineering speed study and recommendations. Now, the revised code is not specific. It just states a traffic engineering study. So we're looking at it as not only the speed, but other traffic amenities that may make that road safer as it is.
Yeah, I understand. I'm just interested in the timing. And if we got the first report back, and it already would support a recommendation to lower that speed limit, I want to be sure we can submit to ODOT based on that.
Right.
We might get better information in the spring, but the information we get now may be enough.
That is correct. That is correct.
Yeah, that's.
DGL felt that, and I think it might have been Mrs. Galagowski mentioned that, during the typical walleye run, that is when they see the majority of their traffic. So DGL suggested that doing one now, because we understand that due to all the governor's orders on the pandemic, that perhaps there's more traffic than there normally is at this time of year. So that may be helpful. But we all know that there's more traffic during the walleye run, so that's why they suggested 2 separate traffic studies. You may get the answer you're looking for in the first one, but you might not get it until the second one. So that's why they suggested doing both, one now and then one later to get the process started.
Do we need to commit to paying for both if we get the answer from the first one? We can just move on and...
I think you could actually probably modify the scope. I mean, you're looking at a cost not to exceed in your legislation. And so if as the owner, we determine that the remaining portion of it is not necessary, we could certainly go forward and amend
It
the
still might
scope.
be worth having the data.
Well, it might be worth having the study for the other portions, you know, as to what we can do to the road and things like that, but if we get what we need, the urgency is to lower the speed limit.
Right.
If we get what we need up front, like Mr. McCarthy said, I think we could act on that.
That's fine, yes.
And then follow through with the rest of the agreement to get the other pieces that go along with it.
Yeah, I don't think DGL would have any issue with us non-performing that part of the scope. Right.
Is there any reason to believe they're not gonna give us a recommendation until we do the second study?
No. I'm sorry, can you
Is there
say?
any reason to believe they aren't gonna give us a recommendation until they get to do the second study in the spring?
Oh, no, they will give you the data. When you do a formal traffic speed study, there's like 9, they call them warrants at the state level. There's like 9 separate issues that they're looking at. Number of cars, speed of cars, average speed of cars, what's situated in, is it a residential neighborhood, commercial, are there schools? So they look at a variety of factors. So there's no reason why they won't give you a recommendation based on the factors of the study at that particular time.
So they'll give us the data and a recommendation?
Yes.
Okay. And I just want to clarify the timeline. So the proposed studies, or the whole package is 21,000. It looks to me like if we move forward with this, initially, we're going to do the engineering study and the first speed study simultaneously.
Correct.
So it's basically 18,000 up front.
Correct.
What we're talking about is saving 3,000 in the spring potentially.
And
Okay.
obviously, the speed study portion is going to take a lot less time than the engineering portion.
Right. I just
So
wanted
they
to make
can
sure
run
I knew the
concurrently.
timeline.
We just added that because we wanted to move expeditiously, but we knew that that was when the most traffic was, so if it didn't come back the way we wanted, we would have a second.
So
Fall back.
one question I guess I have, I'm looking at the ORC, the code here, I have it up. What would happen if we reduce it pending the safety? What would the penalties the city receive towards that if that was reported to ODOT? Just out of curiosity.
If you reduce it without following the process,
Yeah, what's
Yes.
the
it
risk?
would be an unenforceable speed limit. I mean, at a very minimum, it's going to be unenforceable. So you have, the prima facie speed for that road is 25 miles per hour, and that's the only speed that we can enforce. So you're not doing anything to improve the situation if you try and lower it, because they're still going to have a maximum speed limit of 25 that they can do.
Man, I understand, so, but the sign would still say 15, it may not be enforceable, but it would still encourage people to drive slower.
Serve its purpose.
I would
They can
disagree with that.
disqualify people.
If it's known that it's not enforceable at 15, people aren't gonna drive 15.
Who's gonna know? Who's gonna tell?
Right.
We can put it on our website?
I believe one.
If I could, I'd like to address what White House did. If I could, I'd like to address what White House did. This is according to an article that was in the Blade by former Blade reporter Zach Lemon. White House is exploring options to slow down traffic within its village limits. By the way, this was in March of 2017. During its Committee of the Whole meeting Tuesday, Village Council unanimously instructed administrators to get cost estimates for a traffic study of a part of Waterville Street along a radar speed sign to be posted along Heller Road. Council discussed posting a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit down from 50 miles an hour on Waterville between the roundabout at Finzel Road and the White House Fire Station. The village lacks authority to change the speed on a state highway. Waterville Street is part of State Route 64. We can do it, Police Chief Mark McDonough said. The problem is we can't enforce it. Council recommended placing some signs to slow traffic before reaching the 35-mile-an-hour zone close to the village center. It's also recommended Chief McDonough explore pricing for a radar speed sign for Heller. City officials say they receive regular complaints from residents upset with frequent speeders on that street, which has a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit until Chapelstone Road, where it increases to 35. Every year we're out there. Every year we do the enforcement, Chief McDonough said, but there's a lack of manpower limits how often officers can set up there. The committee also discussed changing White House zoning compliant procedure to allow for anonymous complaints. The current process requires a complaint to be signed with the complainant's name, which some councilmen argue deters from filing. I want everyone to be able to access their government services. Councilman Rebecca Conlon Kleebaumer said. Luann Arteaga spoke out against the proposal, citing a citizens committee study finding 80% of Ohio communities require signed zoning complaints. What is the sense of asking people to participate in any committee if you're not going to take those recommendations seriously? Ms. Arteaga asked. No action was taken. Council also extended a moratorium on medical marijuana, blah, 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 blah. But anyway, that's what I wanted to bring up, that they essentially did that in White House. And they can't necessarily enforce it, but they have a speed limit that's less.
They did not, because I drive that road over there.
That's what the article says.
The article said they took no action.
They took no action.
They may not have taken any action, but if you go by there, you'll see that that's what they have done.
Okay, I don't know. Any other discussion? Yes, sure.
May I speak?
Yes, sure.
Thank you. I realize it's unusual to speak as the discussion of the committee is going forward. However, as the mayor indicated, I wanted to speak during citizens' concerns, but this is more appropriate now. My name is Joe Westmeyer. I represent residents of the 0 block of Maple Street. We appreciate the committee's time and effort into looking into these matters. We are asking the committee to legislatively lower the speed limit. I think it's been addressed in somewhat question as to the legality of it and the enforceability of it. However, the enforceability of it is a question that you can look at and say how many tickets have been actually issued on the 0 block of Maple in the last year to make it even worthwhile to question whether it's enforceable or not. You can then turn and look at the speed survey that was done by the police chief that was presented at the last council meeting that showed 96%. Now I'm switching the numbers here because last time I was arguing that 4% was still questionable. However, when you reverse it and you say 96% of the people followed the posted speed limit, you can say that if you legislatively lower it and put a sign that says it's 15, you may get 97 or 96% of the people traveling going 15 miles an hour. And that achieves the goal that the residents are looking for. Now, since the last time, I've also reviewed the presentation that's been presented by the law director, and I understand the concerns of the legality of doing a legislative, lowering of the speed limit. The citizens recognize that, and in an effort to consider other options, to present the committee with other options as opposed, we've spoken with representatives of ODOT and come up with other options as well. And some of those options would include holding off a ruling on paying for this study, as they could cure the problem in an alternative measure and probably for less money to the city than spending the $21,000 on the proposal. Now, those options include, number one, the radar-based speed signs, which are flashing, which have been addressed. However, those signs need to be going both directions, both coming from the water to Front Street and from Front Street to the water. They need to be permanent, not indication as they are going to be temporarily installed, but permanently installed. Residents do not want to have to come back on a yearly basis and fight with council to have them reinstalled, or if they are not reinstalled in a timely fashion, to have continued issues. That provides a permanent solution. The second one is to put in a speed bump with speed advisory signs. Now, representatives from ODOT that we spoke with gave us a very clear example of what this would look like, and we actually have a picture which was provided, and we're passing it out to members of council, because as you can see, this speed bump is one which the city of Toledo erected on Queenswood Road, which was a thoroughway between Secor Road, where it was receiving a substantial amount of traffic of people trying to cut through to avoid traffic backups. And as you can see, what the city did is erect a speed bump with a speed advisory sign. Well, that's what the 15-mile-an-hour sign is. It is not a speed limit, it is a speed advisory. And that sign and that speed bump, again, are there with the purpose of doing basic traffic calming measures. All right. I also would propose to the committee, or excuse me, to the entire council, that a speed bump will serve a very substantial purpose on this road. As most people will know, if you're hauling a trailer with a boat, a jet ski, or anything behind it, you're not going to go over a bump at an excessive speed at risk of what it's going to do to your boat or your jet ski or anything else that you're hauling. So it will achieve that goal. We think that if the council looks into these two alternative things, employing the signs both directions on a permanent basis, and look at installing this speed bump, if you are not going to go to the first step, which is legislatively lower the speed limit, that could achieve the goal and maybe save the city the $20,000 or $21,000 for the study that has to be conducted. If the study goes forward, we would, as residents, we would ask two things be amended to the proposal. Number one, the concept of widening the street be removed from any consideration. Widening the street on Maple Street is not going to solve the problem. No one slows down on a wider street. Everyone is going to go faster. Think about your own experiences. You drive down a residential area. If it's a wider street, you're going to drive faster. If it is a narrow street with maybe cars parked on the sides or whatever causing it to be narrow, you are most likely going to slow down to be a more cautious person. Widening doesn't solve the problem. Second of all, if in fact that study goes forward, we would ask that it be included to have interviews with the residents of Maple to make sure all of their concerns are properly addressed with representatives of the DGL individuals who are conducting the study. So that's our approach. We recognize that you guys are all taking action. We want the legislative lowering of it, but if that's not going to go forward, we ask you to consider the other alternatives that we've given tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Mackin, let me gather my thoughts here. His alternative recommendations for putting a speed limit sign up there that's unenforceable, none of those I don't think that should require council to do. Those are things the administration should do.
We are taking action right now already that is kind of separate from the study, and we'll address some of those are kind of covered in that. I'll let the administrator.
As Ms. Elkire mentioned at the last safety committee meeting, it was mentioned that the flashing speed sign that also includes a recording device that will actually record the speed like our stealth speed survey unit does now, so it'll do both flash the speed you're going and record bi-directional the speeds of the cars both northbound and southbound. So that is it's currently being put together by the city electrician and charging up the batteries for that. I've met with my service director this morning again, and both him and police chief are going to be going out tomorrow and at the 0 block of Maple Street to decide the best location for that speed sign to go northbound. And in addition to that, we purchased temporary rumble strips that are smaller than the speed bump device. They're about 4 inches wide, somewhat low profile, and you put a series of them down several inches apart. So we're looking to put 4 strips on both northbound and southbound. They'll probably be a little bit offset from each other, but they're going to go out and mark the pavement and get those installed this week, as well as the flashing speed sign.
And why temporary strips as opposed to speed?
That is a route that our snowplows utilize every year for excess snow, and speed humps tend to cause a little bit of havoc with these snowplows.
And Mr. Song and I will represent as long as I'm mayor, which guarantees at least for a little while, we will put up the signs next spring in a timely fashion and the temporary strips as well. So as long as I'm in charge of the administration, we'll do that.
So as a practical matter, if city council were to propose and pass legislation to lower the speed limit, even though it's not enforceable, and the administration can put signs out, it's not enforceable.
I'd like to comment. Go ahead.
No,
particularly on those rumble strips, the way they're putting them up, they're actually more effective than a speed bump because you're putting a series up, so they act like everybody's gone through the grade, you know how they have that grade crossing and stuff, and they're actually worse than just one speed bump. But I don't have nothing to do.
Thank you. I don't think I got an answer to my question, though.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I would actually defer to my police chief on that question.
Although we do anticipate that by the study.
I'm not trying to put you on
I
the
know.
spot, but why would we do something?
But I guess I would say it has no enforceability. There's always issues with that. But why not just, we're gonna get the study going, if we pass this as an emergency measure, that takes a couple of weeks, we could have an answer. Right, if we pass the legislation relatively quickly, we can get the study done relatively quickly and address the issue, then have a proper approach, which would be my preference.
Why not, I guess his rebuttal is why not just do both on that? Assuming that we'll find out that if we have to go back, we can change it back based off what the study is, or and maybe it's 20, maybe it's 15. But we can always make that change later. If it's unenforceable, it's unenforceable. I think that's, I don't know this for a fact, but I think that's the case of another street here in the city of Perrysburg anyways, with the way the speed limit is. Why not just change it to 15 for right now? While we wait this pending studies, the study's going to do a little bit more than just the speed, but the speed study will give it the teeth once the study's complete.
I would defer to my law director in case you found what they've told me about it, but.
Well, when you have a process that's outlined in the Ohio Revised Code, while I respect the desire for the urgency of doing it, I can't just sit and not say, no, that's a bad idea. The law is very clear as to the process that it's going to take to get the speed lowered. I can't suggest to you that it would be at all advisable for you to put out a speed, spitballing what you think it may be. With all due respect, I don't know that 15 is the appropriate speed. Our school zones are 20. I don't know why this is lower than our school zones. So I don't know what the appropriate speed is. I know what it's posted at by state law, and I know the process to get it lowered. I wouldn't put anything out there that suggests that you, even though you know it's unenforceable, for the look of it. I do think we have several really good solutions in the meantime, and I don't think that anything that they have outlined is offensive. We're already working on a lot of that, and I think it is a good idea for DGL to go out and speak with the residents of Maple Street and hear their concerns. So I think there's a way to achieve what we're getting at, but you're putting the cart before the horse by saying, picking a speed and determining what's appropriate in that sense.
I'm Tim Goligoski. I've met all of you before from 8 Maple Street. So let me just expand a little bit on where this Queenswood Boulevard situation came from. So I spoke with the folks at ODOT. And specifically I spoke with Mike Ramza, who is now with Bergman Engineering. He was with ODOT with 32 years in District 2. Bridget, you probably know Mike. And he directed me he said, yeah, this is a problem. He directed me to Chris Waterfield. So Chris has been with ODOT for 20 years. He is actually the district traffic engineer and the speed limit coordinator for District 2. So he's the person this study is going to go to. So I had a good long conversation with Chris. So the reality is that study or no study, it is, in Chris's opinion, it is highly unlikely that this speed limit is going to get reduced from 25 miles per hour. In fact, he said, given the formulas that they have, it is mathematically impossible. So I said, okay, well, Chris, let's talk a little bit then about what kind of measures you've seen folks employ. He refers to them as traffic calming measures. He is very positive about the radar signs, and I applaud what the administration is doing in that respect. But I would suggest that there be 2 of them, because this problem exists both directions. And I think I wrote to you all a couple of weeks ago here about an experience I had on a Sunday night. And that confrontation with 2 vehicles was folks coming up the hill and heading towards Maple Street. So this problem exists both ways, and it really deserves 2 sides. The other problem, quite frankly, and I appreciate what you're saying, Tom, that they'll come back in the spring, but in my 32 years on Maple Street, reality is that administrations change, priorities change, people change. And I don't know what the cost of these is. I'm guessing they're $3,000 or $4,000 a piece. And I think putting 2 of these up is very logical. And year-round, quite frankly, this dock gets traffic. The reality is, if you're a teenager in Perrysburg, Ohio, and you're out joyriding, winter or summer, you're going down to see what's going on at the foot of Maple Street. That's really what happens. Okay, so this is a year-round problem. And I think if we take it seriously as a community, then that brings about the need to make this permanent. Now, where this came from was continuing my conversation with Chris, who sees these things around Northwest Ohio. And he said, well, let me explain to you what the folks on Queenswood did from the city of Toledo. This is the city of Toledo that put up these signs. Queenswood is about, it looks on the map, you can see it there, it looks to be about a 8, 9, 10 block street. He said every 500 feet, there is one of these signs. And in this case, they use speed bumps, but they would also work effectively with the strips, the rubber strips. He said what the city has installed is a sign that says bump, 15 miles per hour. These are not legal speed limit signs. These are informational signs, okay? And yeah, probably the real speed limit on this street is 25 miles per hour. It's not, but but what happens is folks see these and they slow down to 15 because they don't want to bump their car. And the reality is, if there are going to be rumble strips on Front Street, then I think we have a duty to, let the public know that they're about to go over something that could, shock them or potentially damage their vehicle, which I don't think is very likely. So I have those 2 comments that I think that there is a way to deal with this 15 mile per hour situation. Chris has said flat out, based upon his 20 years in ODOT, this is not going to get approved for 25 miles per hour. That's just reality. And he said, and frankly, I think that the formula works the way it does for that reason. And lastly, I think, as Joe has said, we feel pretty strongly that widening this street is just not, that's inconsistent with what we're asking for. We're concerned about a speeding problem on Maple Street. But if that street gets wider, that's just going to encourage more speeding. So they're sort of mutually exclusive. So we would ask that alternative be removed from the DGL study. And lastly, if the study does proceed, we would ask that the council include the requirement for citizen participation in the study.
The administration will make that recommendation.
That's just
Concept.
You always walk up here at the same time. I'm just winding up. What?
Does she have anything to say?
Honey, have you got anything at the last? I don't know. It looks like it's bedtime. Thank you very much.
Mr. Galagowski, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
If you don't mind.
Yep.
So some of my concerns, and after the last council meeting, I'm sure you're well aware, I came down there.
Yep, that's what I understand. Yep. Thank you.
Things out myself. One of the things, so putting up the radar, right, that broadcasts the speed. One of my concerns, I don't think it's a bad idea by any means, but are you concerned at all that the traffic studies that we did ourselves or had our police do, they showed almost all people following that 25 mile an hour speed limit. So, and they were out there before. Did you notice a difference in how people were driving when those signs were up? Because the study was telling me most of them saw that their speed was at the speed limit. Or
which is what we'd hope.
Have the radar sign.
Okay.
The study was, I believe, not one that included signs.
Correct. That's correct.
That's correct. The signs were not there. The sign that the police chief, the department, the administration put up, that was not during the speed study.
So that's I guess that's.
Yeah. So I would say yes. I think that sign and the kind of sign that the administration is proposing is very effective. Because I remember pulling onto Maple Street from Front Street, and it was way down the street. The sign was, the machine was just about the top of the hill, but it sees way out there. Now, I don't know if this device is probably similar, but I mean, you saw it right away, because what happens is your speed starts to blink.
Right.
So it's not as though it comes on when you get to 25. It's blinking all the time. It's telling you 10, 11, 12. So you can hardly miss it. I mean, it was bright yellow. So, and this is daylight. So, yeah, I think it slows it down. I think that the signs can be very effective. And I think trying the rumble strips is an excellent idea, and probably more temporary because of they can get ripped up. But our thought would be both directions, permanent year round, and frankly, the city can hold off on the $21,000 study till those two things get tested.
Okay, now, the one thing I did want to ask,
Yes.
because there's several other things in that study that quite frankly spoke to me after being out there. One of them was widening the street. I'll just be honest with you, I'm trying to look at this objectively. And one of the reasons I was happy to see that in the study is during my time out there, I think I was out there maybe 30, 45 minutes. One thing I noticed is there are no sidewalks.
There's a side.
For the portion.
Correct. Down the hill. Down the hill. That's correct.
So during my time there's no multi-use path. People generally, it looks like, use that hill to walk on, to ride their bikes on, and that's part of the safety concerns. So a narrower, I would argue, or potentially argue if I'm being objective, is that widening those streets may be an effective safety measure because it allows walkers more room to get over, bike riders, and I also get that you live there and may not want that widened, but that was one of my concerns.
Well, I think that there, frankly, if the street were going to be widened and a bike lane added, I think there is a way that's going to cause the speeds to increase, but it will work for the bike riders. A path, a multi-use path, I'm not going to argue against that. In the right of way, a meandering path down, but just in and of itself, wider streets. And this is a conversation I had with Chris as well. And his response was, well, usually what we do is we try to, we try to put curves in to slow things down. So now in your case, you don't have that. We try to put in roundabouts. Well, this doesn't apply here because it's just a dead-end street. So he would call that a traffic calming. I don't know that he would call a widened street a traffic calming.
Right.
As a matter of fact, I know he doesn't because that's what he said. So.
Well, yeah, and I think that, I guess part of my concern, and it's not necessarily that I'm advocating for wider streets. I don't need to come away with that. But it's part of what I want the experts to look at. Because potentially it's safer for the vehicles that travel this street with the boats. I don't know. I'm not an expert in that area, but.
And that's not my issue.
Yeah. So.
Quite frankly, that's not the residents' issue.
I will say, I will address this to Mr. Gologowski and to Joe. I agree with the comments that you made, Joe, entirely. And I don't think we need to be doing a $21,000 study. It's a waste of money for something that basically the residents are asking for, which are signs at the top and at the bottom for the residents to see what the speed is, if you will. The solar, I think it was the solar signs we talked about at one point, and maybe a sign per se. And I don't believe that we need to widen the road. That will cause issue with that area there. That's probably like that from a glacier, I'm guessing. But I just think that the safety is the issue at hand here, and I think you're not asking for a lot. You're simply asking for safety for the street and for the permanent issues or solutions. So I'm with you. I too was after the former council meeting was there as well, and Corey met me there because we had talked about it to see what it looked like. But realistically, looking at it, I'm not an engineer, I don't claim to be one, but the reality is it doesn't make a lot of sense to do all of these other things that we're trying to add in here, and it will cost the residents, I think, a lot of agony that does need to be happening.
So that's where I disagree with my fellow council person.
Are we ready to call the roll?
I just want to add one. So I will be voting to move forward with the study because of what I saw out there. I would like professionals to take a look because it does look like a concerning situation to me. So that's the way I'm going to address it tonight. It sounds like the administration is also implementing some fail-safes as well to try to get the speeders to reduce their speed. But personally, I can't vote to legislatively lower the speed limit now that I know the procedure. I actually think I'd be going against my oath as an official of the court to do so. So if that comes up, I can't vote for that. I'll abstain. So.
I know both Mr. Granville and Mr. Waterfield, worked with them for many years. As you mentioned my name, they would attest to it. Two things. This was probably done as part of a new paving job. Speed bumps or rumble strips put in after the fact don't stay or last very long because of the combination of new and old pavement. And second of all, one of the things that struck me, I believe it was your wife who made the comment about all the increased traffic, bike traffic that you've gotten since this spring. And once people see the beauty of certain areas, they're not going away. So I agree with Councilman Coleman that we need to do a study and potentially put in a multi-use path, and I think that's the better.
I will add, Jan, if you've been down there, and I'm gathering that you have,
I walked down
the majority,
sun ran cross country, and
the majority of people that go down there are not even from Perrysburg. You count the number of 48 plates. We're basically trying to do something for the residents that don't live here. The residents that live here aren't the issue.
Do live here.
All right, well, all right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Sure.
Hi. I'm Emily Galagaski. I've lived on Maple Street most of my life, including this summer, with my husband and 4-year-old son. And there's a lot, of course, that I worry about for my son in the age of a global pandemic. I worry about whether schools will reopen in the fall. I worry about his competitiveness in the global job market. I did not know in coming back to Perrysburg how worried I would be about him scooting and learning to ride a bike in front of his grandparents' home. Carrie Hatfield, who is a neighbor of ours, has shared a letter that she's asked us to read. It's about 4 paragraphs, and I'll read it now. Dear City Council members, my husband and I live at 345 East Front Street on the corner of Maple and Front. We have twin girls who will be 3 years old in October and are very concerned about the safety at the 0 block of Maple Street. We were shocked by the amount of people who drive on this dead-end street. My husband has yelled at cars and trucks numerous times over the past 3 years, and some neighbors have dealt with this for over 3 decades. As you know, after what we felt was lack of support from the city, we put our signs up. It was very disappointing to receive the sign removal after one complaint. These signs do not promote a business or a political view, but are for the safety of the children and residents on this street. If every house has a sign, that indicates that there's a serious problem. Lack of support communicates to us that a city ordinance is more important than the people who live here, which is the exact opposite of the family-friendly community that attracted us to being here. We would like to thank the police chief for all he has done, but we know that the police force cannot patrol here all the time. We would also like to thank the city council members who have supported us in this acknowledged concern. We were very hopeful after the last city council meeting. However, we feel it is now being drawn out with requiring an unnecessary study and taxpayers' money. I'm not discounting others' concerns, but we are not comparing apples to apples with other residential streets at 25 miles an hour. The 0 block of Maple Street is a short, not even 2-lane road with people pulling boats and trailers with jet skis, with a blind hill both ways, into a dead-end boat launch parking lot that is heavily used, including by local school running teams, without sidewalks all the way down. I work in public education, and we are expected to work with the citizens to problem-solve safety concerns that arise. Therefore, I understand that there are budgets and time limits. That is why we feel that the reasonable solution would be to reduce the speed limit to 15 miles per hour and install permanent speed indicator signs in both directions. In education, we say fair isn't always giving everyone the same thing, but everyone getting what they need to be safe or successful within reason. In our case, we hope the above reasonable requests are implemented as soon as possible for the safety of the 0 block of Maple Street residents and all of the community members who walk, run, skateboard, run, and ride their bikes here. We do not want a wider road that will encourage people to drive faster. Respectfully yours, Brian and Carrie Hatfield. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's call the roll, please.
All right, 1 second. Okay, roll call on the resolution. Start with Mr. Coolman.
I'm gonna say yes, with the understanding that we're also including the study to include conversations with the Maple Street residents.
The administration will pass that on and recommend. That's not an issue. I mean, that would make some common sense, and I think it probably would have been part of the study anyway, but to be sure of that, that's fine.
So, yes.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Matuzak.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Ms. Bourne.
No.
Ms. Materney.
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy.
Yes.
Thank you. You're welcome to stay. The administration passed emergency measures. Administration will get on it tomorrow, probably. Probably won't be doing anything this evening. We can work on the things that are in our control tomorrow. Thanks, Joe. You're welcome to stay, or you get a moment to head out. All right, moving forward, Recreation Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, once again. Perrysburg City Council Recreation Committee report for regular meeting of July 14th, 2020. Present were Chairwoman Deborah Bourne, Councilors Jonathan Smith and Jan Materney. Chairwoman Bourne called the meeting to order in council chambers at 6:33 p.m. After the Pledge of Allegiance, citizen concerns were requested. Mr. Smith stated that he had heard from residents that it would be a good idea to plant trees in Rivercrest Park along the border by I-75. He continued that this might be a good idea to present to the administration since we are a tree city. Ms. Warren supported the idea. Old business, there was no action taken about the following old business items. Riverside Park cannon stands, inclusive playground. Ms. Materney reported that she had seen on Channel 11 WTOL is doing a duck drop fundraiser for the project online. Splash pad, there wasn't any discussion. Multi-purpose wall, there, I should say no action taken on these items. The West Side handball court, Chairwoman Bourne stated that she is waiting for further information on the project from Al Reva and that she had asked him or a representative from his family to attend our next meeting. PABSC financials. Chairwoman Bourne stated that she is waiting for information from PABSC President Tim McGrady. Under new business, the committee voted 3-0 to recommend to council to approve the mayor's request that Caleb Kristen and Todd France be appointed to serve on the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. Chairwoman Bourne explained to the prospective members that the proper procedure for presenting PRAC recommendations to council or to the administration. PRAC report, no report because PRAC has not met since last year. Ms. Bourne explained that the chairman of PRAC decides when the committee meets. Other business, Ms. Materney asked if there has been any consideration to the creation of a dog park in Perrysburg. Mr. Smith responded that the subject had been previously discussed at the committee when he had been asked about it by a citizen. He had hoped that a group of citizens might come together to advance this idea, but the pandemic has slowed everything down. Ms. Warren said that she recalled that there was concern about liability plus a decrease in city revenue caused by the pandemic should make us conscious of additional expense. The meeting adjourned at 6:49 p.m. The next meeting is scheduled for August 11th at 6:30 p.m. The report was prepared by Deborah Elborn, Chairwoman, July 27, 2020. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question about something in here? Ms. Alcare, from when I was on the rec committee, I believe it was, at least at one time, the PABSC had a written agreement with the city of Perrysburg to use the fields, and included in those terms and conditions was the requirement to provide financial statements to the city of Perrysburg by certain dates. I'm not on the committee anymore, I don't have that agreement, I think, but are they complying with the terms of their agreement with us?
They are. In fact, they operate on a different calendar. They don't operate on a calendar year, they operate on a fiscal year.
Change that recently.
So we've actually been in contact with PABSC's treasurer and are working on getting all of their financial reports, but that is still part of their agreement. They have to be able to demonstrate not only their nonprofit status, they have to be able to designate under the cost sharing portion of their agreement, the portions that the city gets out of their banner sponsorships, out of their field rentals. So all of those are financials that we are still getting from them.
So are you telling me that their fiscal year end is different than where it was when they entered into the agreement?
Well, we actually just entered into a new agreement. We just redid our field contracts this year. So they owe the financials, and I think we've gotten everything by this point.
We do have the financials from the last fiscal year, and my understanding from Mr. McGrady, who is the current PABSC president, who did send them to the city, he was aware of Ms. Bourne's request, and I thought Ms. Bourne, when I had emailed, I think you last week when I was on vacation, that I would provide them when I was back in the office. I thought I had a response from you that said that you had already had them then sent to you?
No. Mr. McGrady, what I had sent to Mr. McGrady, I think we're crossing.
Correct. I actually have them in my office, and
sure.
I can send them to all council tonight.
Mr. McGrady had indicated that they had some change in some of their board, and he was apologizing for not being able to make the meeting. But he said that they would work on getting that information to me. But he had mentioned that they had gotten it to you, I believe it was.
Yes, they are required to send it at the end of their fiscal year, so many days after the end of the fiscal year. So we do have those documents.
If that is the case, can that come to my committee, the next meeting that we have?
Yes, I can certainly send them out. I'll scan them in and send them out to all the committee members tonight, so you have it this evening.
I very much appreciate that.
Yeah, they do have a turnover in their leadership, and that actually coincides with the date of their fiscal year. So as the old people are going out and wrapping up the financials, the new people are coming in and getting acclimated to what was in the financials and where they were at. But yeah, we do have those documents.
I very much appreciate receiving them.
You'll have them this evening.
Thank you.
So the community knows, and Laura just quickly explained a lot of what we've been doing in the administration, a lot of what you've been doing, and one of the reasons we really are going to miss you is you've been working on contracts with given the pandemic, how many contracts have we changed, modified so that kids can participate in activities that are outside? So you might want to explain to the community.
We have actually, we have put a formal process in place with all of our sports organizations and associations to be able to utilize our field that not only protects us and liability, but requires enhanced insurance requirements, enhanced actual formal contracts that didn't exist before. And since the pandemic, now we have put lacrosse, rugby, baseball, softball, and soccer. We have tennis pending. We've tried to put every sport that we can get out on the fields, and now we're putting yoga practices out in our parks. And tomorrow actually we managed to put a dance recital out in one of our parks because they weren't able to hold it indoors. So we've been working quite hard to get all of our different activities open and public as best we can.
Really, she did a great job. The community's been well served for her getting all that done, so we can have all those activities. The resignation letter. Public utilities. Skipping around. Oh, planning didn't have anything. Planning zone.
Okay. Oh yeah, that is before personnel. Yes, we met on July 8th Myself, I should identify myself. I'm Tim McCarthy, Chairman of the Planning and Zoning Committee, along with Corey Coleman and Barry Van Hoosen. Also present were Bridget Cabot, Laura Elkiner, and Brody Walters and Mark Easterling from our Planning and Zoning Department. My apologies, the minutes aren't finalized yet. I'll get them finalized. You'll get a copy of that. But there are two issues that night. Both ended up being really referrals to the Planning Commission. Mark Easterling reported that the Planning and Zoning Division has dealt with two different parking lots that are being torn out and replaced without a permit. One is at Perrysburg High School, the other is at the Country Charm Shopping Center. There was discussion about how the code is silent with regards to repairs or maintenance of parking lots. Mark said that to give some relief to business owners who want to fill potholes or cracks in their parking lot, the Planning and Zoning Division has used 1250.51 that addresses driveway repairs and allows up to 10% to be replaced, and that's only considered maintenance. If you don't do that, that is, you do more than 10%. According to other provisions of the zoning code, a site plan would have to go to the Planning Commission, and the parking lot would then have to be brought into full compliance with the code. As an example, I asked how Country Charm is non-conforming. Well, there are no landscape islands, and there's no buffering from the residential areas across the street. Ms. Elkhart pointed out that we've been more generous, the city has, than the code allows, and we need to either provide language in the code allowing maintenance for parking lots or require them to go through the site plan process. It should be noted Mr. Van Hoosen said that he has chosen not to participate in this discussion because he is a tenant at Country Charm. The committee then agreed 2-0 to refer the issue to the Planning Commission as to whether the parking lot should be treated the same as driveways with regard to repairs and maintenance. The other issue we talked about that night was whether to proceed forward with permitting hens. If that was the case, it's a code amendment that would have to go to the Planning Commission. I said, in my own view, this was a process that had been approved, the current process, chipping the hens and annual verification that they're still there. That was approved in 2017 as a trial run. I think it's been going well with a couple of bumps. I was in favor, and I am in favor of referring it to the Planning Commission. Krista Kissling said that she had done some informal polling. There are still some people interested in having hens. She does not think there will be more than a dozen families that may want to keep chickens. In her personal case, she has 3 left, and even if this is approved, they will not be replacing theirs. Kevin Ranton was present. He said his neighbor has them, and there were no issues. Again, the committee agreed 3-0 to refer the matter to the Planning Commission. Mr. Coleman asked that a future agenda item be the consideration of changing planning and zoning items that are in the criminal code that could instead be handled in civil court. I responded that the former prosecutor recommended that before he retired. Ms. Elkhire said that she had met with the judge and prosecutor early last year, and they were open to it, and the prosecutor was also in favor of it. Mr. Randon said that he planted 10 to 15 arborvitaes along the property line for a customer last year, and then the customer received a letter about the height of the arborvitae. He said the government is overstepping its boundaries, and he wants this regulation repealed because it is not a problem. We had an update on a couple outstanding planning and zoning cases, one of which is the White Road property that I think Laura gave us all some information on that. That appears to resolved itself rather nicely. There was no further business. We adjourned at 6:38 p.m. We will meet again on Wednesday, August 12 at 5:30 p.m. End of report.
Personnel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We met tonight prior to this meeting at 5 o'clock. I will wait. It was a rather lengthy meeting, so I'll wait to summarize that until our next council meeting. We are going to hold a special committee meeting. I believe it is August 10th. At 5:30. That will be held at the Hilton Garden Inn before the DORA public hearing. And no further business.
Thank you.
Public utilities.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm ready to go. All right.
going to.
I'm not used to going like before everyone else. We did have a meeting on July 22nd. It was called to order at 6 p.m. by Chairman Jonathan Smith. Committee members present were James Attorney, Jonathan Smith, and Barry Van Hoosen. Also present was Alice Gossi, Director of Public Utilities. Citizens' comments. Izette Cesari, manager of the Hilton Garden Inn at 6165 Levis Commons Boulevard, was present because they were charged a penalty on their March water and sewer bill, although the check was issued on March 5th and the due date was March 16th. He said the city did not post the check until March 26th. Mr. Cesari said that they had not been late before and asked him to waive the penalty. Mr. Smith said that they had a similar issue with another business and they have changed the code to address the situation in the future. Because if the bill is postmarked by the due date, it will be considered paid on time. The committee questioned whether City Council has authority to waive this penalty since it has happened in the past. There was discussion about the issue with the mail and other customers that contacted the director because their bills were not received by the due date. Mr. Smith said they will check with the law director to see what can be done, and we'll get back to Mr. Cesari. Next on the agenda was engineering services for East River Road water connection. Ms. Gossi requested approval of a contract with Proudfoot Associates in an amount not to exceed $144,835 for engineering services and temporary easements for a directional drill project that will go directly from Toledo's water line to our line and will remove us from the Northwest Water and Sewer District line. Ms. Gossi said that we pay the district in the range of $700,000 per year for use of their line. She said that Toledo has a sustainable water line in the area of Ford Road and the Turnpike. This project will be a 24-inch water line from the Toledo to our line. The not to exceed amount is $127,335 for engineering services and for 20 permanent and temporary construction easements at $875 each. The exact number of easements is not yet known. Ms. Gossi said that 4 firms responded to the RFQ and Proudfoot was selected based on ranking. The committee agreed 3-0 to recommend approval. Ms. Gossi, the next item on the agenda was water meter survey info. Ms. Gossi distributed the results of a survey that showed information about water meters in other communities to see if there were any instances of unexplained spikes in customer usages. The committee reviewed the information and discussed the benefits of a fixed-base system. This system allows the customer's meter to be read constantly. Ms. Gossi said that several years ago she had a cost of the system and they are looking at putting it in the 2021 budget, but it will be a multi-year project. The committee agreed that we need to move forward in this direction unanimously. Next on the agenda is the sewer credits tabulation. Ms. Gossi provided the committee with a list of sewer credits under $1,000 that were approved for 2019 and year-to-date into 2020. There was discussion regarding dye testing, and Ms. Gossi said that back in 2015, they established a policy that if a customer had an issue with the sump pump and they were requesting a credit in excess of $500, a dye test would be required to ensure that water was going into the storm sewer and not the sanitary sewer. Mr. Smith suggested that if a dye test were required for all sewer credit requests involving the sump pump, it might help in finding unauthorized connections that are contributing to our combined sewer and sanitary sewer overflow problems. Mr. Smith said that if it is found that the sump pump goes to the sanitary sewer, the city can help with the cost through the grant program. Mr. Van Hoosen said they appreciates the intent, but there could be some pushback. Ms. Gossi said if the committee had any questions to call or email her. And another business, Mr. Van Hoosen asked about how many combined sewer overflows or CSOs that were in with Sunday's rainfall. Ms. Gossi said there was a total of 3. There being no further business, the meeting adjourned at 6:53 p.m. and our next meeting is Wednesday, August 26th at 6:30 p.m. As an update to the committee, I did talk to Lauren Bridget briefly regarding the question on the payback. We might need to have some further conversations. So the meeting coming back to the next committee meeting, depending on what information has to make. If we can move forward sooner, we'll try to. With that being said, I would like to introduce Resolution 36, 2020, and move the rules be suspended to allow first reading by number and title only, and dispense with the second and third reading.
I second.
Roll call.
Okay, Ms. Bourne.
Yes.
Mr. Coolman.
Yes.
Ms. Materney.
Yes.
Mr. Matuzak.
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Resolution number 36, 2020. A resolution accepting the proposal and entering into an agreement with Proudfoot and Associates for engineering services related to the East River Road water connection project and declaring an emergency.
All right, then I move that resolution 36, 2020 be passed as an emergency measure.
Mr. Mayor, I have discussion.
I seconded.
Yeah, okay,
Sorry.
1 second.
I have discussion, quick discussion. I'm just wondering, is this simply a study that we're looking at, a feasibility study, and what is the actual cost?
So I know that I'll speak to some of this, but the actual final cost is, this has been actually a conversation on committee for at least 2 or 3 years, I want to say. I was all time with the Toledo water contract, if we were going to move forward or not. I know that this is going to be the engineering and more so than just a feasibility study, so I believe we've already done part of that. This is to actually start to move forward with that process, and ultimately at the end of the day, this will be saving our taxpayers $670,000 to $700,000 in that range every year on an annual basis. And I want to say the cost was going to be around $1 to $2 million, if I remember correctly. Final, am I correct in that or no?
So we've got the total cost as recommended, would be $144,835.
Well, that's really just the study, is that
The ultimate cost of the project is,
yeah.
That's what,
Sorry.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get at.
Good evening. My recollection from conversations with the director, deputy director of utilities, is that with the estimated savings between $700,000 and $750,000 a year, that we would not be paying the district in fees to utilize their line, that we would pay off the cost of this project in less than 5 years. That was in last year's dollars, so I want to say that it was probably then in the neighborhood of maybe $4 million for the entire construction portion, and then the payback, we would realize savings going forward after about 5 years.
Ultimately, for 5 years, we're saving $700,000 a year for probably 100 years, if not longer, with the piping and everybody.
Assuming that the rates do not increase accordingly over that amount
We
of
would
time.
probably be saving even more than that eventually.
Correct.
So the cost of that project is going to come out of the
Utility funds, yeah.
Thank you.
roll call, my bad, roll call.
Okay, Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy,
Yes.
Mr. Matuzak,
yes.
Ms. Materney,
Yes.
Mr. Coolman,
Yes.
Ms. Bourne.
Yes.
Thank you.
Your Honor, no further business in the public utilities.
Thank you. Any other business come before council?
Yes, oh, I do. I'm sorry, Mr. President. I was going to ask regarding the DORA. Was there a legal notice published for the first DORA meeting and the second DORA meeting? I don't recall or remember seeing the notices, the actual notices that I know you have to pay for. Just want to make sure, and I also want to make sure that at our next DORA meeting, that there can be public comment. The last meeting, I didn't observe that at all with the public.
I will say that we offered everyone an opportunity to come up, especially towards the end, and everyone who was there did come up and did comment.
Well, I think if I may, Mr. President, I will mention that I noticed that only the people that were connected to that were the only ones that were allowed to speak, and there was nothing on the agenda talking about public comment or citizen concerns. That's why I asked the question.
Actually, I would say there was.
I remember it was a young couple and he came up and spoke in favor.
That's very nice. There was Alex Ward who did come up and speak, who was a citizen, Dr. Linda Boyer, who was involved with the downtown DORA she's involved with. Toledo did come up and say something as well. And Chelsea Palmer, who is part of downtown Perrysburg and is not a part of the DORA contract, did come up and speak as well.
Well, I did notice that all of them were all people that were connected with the DORA project, having done my research. And I also noticed that none of the actual citizens had the opportunity to speak. There were a couple there that I know that weren't connected to anything.
You mean connected or full?
I mean connected at all to the DORA project. The citizens, and I had some questions from people that wanted to speak and they were not allowed to speak. So I'm going to be aware of what was said.
I appreciate letting us be aware, but I will respectfully disagree.
There wasn't anyone who indicated they wanted to speak who was refused.
We allowed everybody who wanted to come forward. In fact, even President Smith reiterated numerous times throughout the meeting that asking for public comment, and everybody who wanted to come up did come up.
I don't think that I'm complaining about Mr. Smith. What I'm mentioning is an actual fact. It does not say on the agenda anything about public comment or citizen concerns. they're not on the agenda. I'm hoping that we'll see that on the next agenda.
I will mention that that was a committee of the whole, it was not the public hearing. The public hearing that you do have scheduled at the Hilton Garden Inn has been published as required for 2 consecutive weeks. It was published on the 22nd of July and the 29th of July in both the Sentinel Tribune and the Messenger Journal. That's advertising the public hearing, and during public hearings, our agendas always have room for public comment.
Ms. Alkire, could you please send those to all of the council, copies of those, so we can see those?
I have to get proof of publication from both. I can at least send you the confirmations that I got from the Sentinel Tribune.
Well, if we could have the actual copies of the notices, it would be great.
When I get those, I will send them to you.
Thank you.
I would also say the administration will continue if we get public comment, phone call, email, or otherwise regarding the door in any fashion. We will forward it on to all the council members as well.
You can accumulate those in a separate folder.
Better you. Any other business for council?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Aye.
All in favor?